Good afternoon, students. So this is for your first chapters, remaining portions, that we'll start from contours and the contour lines that represents various topographical features. So as we already have discussed in the first class, that contours is an imaginary line that joins places having equal height. So as we can see, as the first feature here, in the first point here, it says that it is a line that is drawn to show places of equal height. So that is above the sea level, as we see that the contours join such places. Now these contours has a different characteristics. That is, the first characteristic is that it is represented by a brown line, as we can see here in this paper. Here it is shown by brown line, and in similar way in a topo sheet it is also represented with a brown line. Now these contour lines that are found in the topo sheet, they represents various heights of various landforms. Secondly, the contours, some are very close to each other, some are placed far apart. So those contours that are placed far apart represents a gentler slope, while the contours that are placed close enough, they represent steep slope. The contour values, or in fact the contour lines valued differently, never meets each other because they represent different heights. But if so happens, or if two or more contour lines meets with each other, then they would represent either a cliff or a waterfalls. Based on these contour variants, that is the difference between two contour intervals, there are two different types of slopes that we learn. One is the gentle slope, the other is the steep slope. Gentler slope is represented by contours placed far apart. Here, the elevation of the land has a lower angle in respect to its base, while the steep slopes are represented by contours that are placed close enough, and the elevation here is represented with greater angle in respect to its base. Following such contours placement, we have different geographical features that they represent. The first one that we see is a conical hill. A conical hill is usually represented by contours whose values increases towards the center. As we can see here in this map, the value placed on the outer line is 6700. As we move inward, the value increases, and when we move to the innermost point, or that is the contour line, the value is the maximum. Hence, it gives an elevated lands. So, conical hills as well is defined as an uniformly elevated land from its surrounding. While a plateau, when we see, a plateau as defined is a flat topped surface with steeper slopes that rises considerably higher as its adjoining areas. The contour lines of a plateau, here in the book it's mistaken as conical hill, but this is to be a plateau. So the contour lines that we see here, at the base the contours are placed far apart, but as we go closer or as we go higher here with the plateaus, you will see that the contours are close enough to each other, which represents a steep slope. And since here at the center the contour values is there are no such contour lines been drawn and it's all spacious, so this represents a flat land on top. A ridge, the third one that we see, is a long, narrow range of hills. Okay, a ridge represents a range of hills. That means, in a simpler word, when we say, when two conical hills combine with each other with a valley at its base, then we consider it to be a ridge. When it is a single standing hill, we consider it to be a conical hill, but when it's combined with another conical hills in continuous sections, we call it a ridge. The fourth one, in fact, is a gap. As we know, gap, it means a space between any two objects. So here, a gap is a valley that is usually formed by a river between two mountains or two highland areas. Well, very similar to like that of gap is saddle, but the difference is in a saddle we hardly find a river. It is a low point. In fact, a saddle is a low point between any two elevated surface or between any two higher grounds. The low point is considered to be a saddle. Then col. We see when the different depressions between two peaks is narrow and at higher level it is called col. Narrow, that means the space or the gap between two peaks is very less, and usually it is located at higher elevated lands is what we call col. While a pass is a low point between two higher elevated areas that provides a route to cross over from one side of the mountain range or a ridge to the other side. So these are the certain features that are represented by the contour lines in a topographical map. Well, in a topographical map, there are also certain cultural features that have been represented. As we learned from the conventional colors, that settlements are mostly represented by red colors. So we see that there are different types of settlements that have been represented in a map with red color. Usually, when we look onto settlement types, we only consider settlements of densely populated or less populated. So these are the two things that we try and understand. But settlements are also differentiated from one another on the basis of their structure. So when we see the structure, the first one that we come is a linear settlement. The word linear would represent a line. It represents a line. So whenever we find settlements beside any roads or railway lines or a river, we consider it to be a linear settlement because they all are constructed in a line and a straight line, either beside a road, a railway track or a river. Well, nucleated settlements, the second type of it, we call it nucleated because there is too much of settlements. That means it is congested. The houses are placed very close to each other and there are lots of houses or constructions been done of the buildings. So such settlements where houses are close enough and there are plenty of settlements, we call it clustered or nucleated settlements. The third type of settlements is a dispersed settlements. As we see, the word dispersed means to get scattered. So likewise, when houses are built far apart from one another, they are considered to be a dispersed settlement. These are mostly found in the village areas or countrysides. That is what we generally call bastis. And here, what we see with nucleated settlement is these are mostly found in towns and cities. The last form of settlement is a radial settlement. Radial means to radiate into different direction. So at the center for radial settlements, what we find is at the center there is a certain specific feature of that particular place. Any cultural feature can be, or any monuments that are placed at the center, and the road that radiates away from that monuments or any of the cultural features. So onto those radiated areas, when the houses are built, we call it a radial settlement. So this is all in terms of settlements. Now, in terms of the development situations or in terms of developmental factors, when we see development or when we see settlements, in fact, we see there are two different types of settlements. One is urban settlements with all the facilities that they have, mostly the towns and cities. The capital cities of different states are considered to be urban settlement. While the other form is a rural settlement. Rural settlement means the one that are mostly deprived of the certain economic as well as social benefits, like basti areas is what we call rural settlement. They are devoid of certain modern facilities or modern day facilities which are to be provided to them. So this is what we have for the chapter. I hope it will be clear for you with each and every topic and you understand it easily. I also urge that if there are any mistakes, or in fact if there are any problems that you find in understanding the topics, you feel free to text me or you can even call me. Thank you very much, class. You have a very good day. You all stay safe and stay home. Thank you.